Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
This episode is brought to you by Become a Super Learner, the Masterclass. You guys, if you have ever wanted to learn things faster, to read faster and waste less time reading boring textbooks, if you've ever wanted to have near perfect memory for names, numbers, anything you want to learn, and expand your mind and retain information in a way that you never thought possible, well, then the Become a Super Learner Masterclass is exactly what you've been looking for. It's a 10-week program developed by myself and my mentors alongside some of the world's best memory experts and world record holding memory champions. It'll take you from zero to super learning hero in just a matter of 10 weeks in about 30 minutes a day or less. Now, you can go ahead and sign up for a free trial with no credit card required. All you have to do is go to jle.vi/learn. And if you choose to pick up the full course, you will also get an incredible discount for listeners of this podcast only. So please make sure to check it out and support the show. And on to today's episode. This episode is brought to you by Organifi. You guys, one of the only things that every nutritional expert that we've had on the show seems to actually agree on is that we all need to eat more vegetables, eat more greens, eat organic, cut out all the processed junk. Well, who has the time, right? Who has the time to go out, do the shopping, make the salads, make the juices, make the smoothies? And that's what I love so much about Organifi. Their product is an all-organic green juice. It has all of the nutrients that you need. It tastes absolutely amazing, and it's made by wonderful people who I consider to be personal friends. And as listeners of this show, you guys can actually save 20% on your first order. And all you have to do is go to Organifi.com. That's ORGANIFI.com and use the coupon code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. Greetings, super friends, and welcome to this week's episode, which we only stopped and bothered to do thanks to Rohit Hamster from India, who wrote us a wonderful review. Very short, very sweet. He says, great, 5 stars, a great podcast to listen to in free time to become superhuman. So guys, you don't have to spend half an hour writing a review to put a smile on our entire team's face. You can do like Rohit did, and we still really appreciate it. On to today's episode, you guys. Today, I am joined by Jason Campbell. He is the co-founder of a company called Zen Wellness, and he's someone that I met at Genius Network, Joe Polish's mastermind, which I have joined in the last year. And Jason is really interesting because he combines a couple different disciplines, obviously entrepreneurship, but he also comes from a long line of musicians and brings to it an aspect of well-being, which he teaches through the Eastern disciplines of Qigong, Tai Chi, Taoist medicine, and philosophy. He is a 7th degree black belt. He is an accomplished pianist, and he composes meditation and training music, of which he currently has 5 albums, The 5 Elements of Om Mani Padme Hum, which has been number 1 on Amazon in its category for almost 2 years. He also has 3 more albums in production for release in 2018. I wanted to talk to Jason to get a better understanding of practical and applied mindfulness. As a Westerner, I think he has an interesting perspective on all of these things. And as an entrepreneur, I think he has a lot to share about how we can actually integrate this stuff into our lives. See, we all know from 50 episodes of this show and tons of other media and press coverage, we know we should be doing meditation, but how many of you have actually done it more than once in the last week? I know I haven't. I've gotten really bad in my meditation practice. And that's exactly what Jason's message is about, is there are simple and easy ways that you can implement this into your daily life that aren't painful so that you will actually do it. We start there. The conversation goes on into mindfulness, the beauty of learning music, why there are benefits to both. I think you're really going to enjoy it. So without any further ado, allow me to present to you my super friend, Jason Campbell. Mr. Jason Campbell, welcome to the show, my friend. It is so good to reconnect. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan.
It's a pleasure. You know, since we met at Genius Network, big shout out to Joe Polish for connecting us. I've been really excited, and I'm really excited to spend some time with you in September and explore some meditation and stuff like that.
We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll bring you up to our retreat center out here in the desert in Arizona.
I love it. I'm so stoked about it. So, Jason, for those who haven't had the opportunity to meet you in the flesh, tell us a little bit about you and about Zen Wellness and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, well, at Zen Wellness, we teach meditation, we teach Tai Chi and Qigong. It's really Eastern wellness. And we also use music and compose like original music for all of our programs to help our members in their development and in their cultivation. So it's an Eastern wellness program using arts that, go back 5,000 years that have been used for, health, happiness, wellness, inner peace.
Wow. And how did you get into this world? That's what I haven't yet learned from our face-to-face interactions. What's the journey that you went through to become a specialist in meditation, Qigong? And
yeah, well, I have been teaching this full time for over 25 years, but it really goes back farther than that. Than my earliest lessons in Zen. And when I got started in Zen and meditation, I didn't even know it was Zen meditation. I was a child and I was at the piano, and my teacher at the time, she said to me, one of my earliest lessons was never, ever listen to the notes. And if you want to be a master, you don't listen to the notes. You listen to the space in between the notes. Because when you listen to a note, you hear nothing because your mind is cluttered. When you listen to the space or the silence in between the notes, then you can hear everything. And at the time, I didn't think it was a big deal. I just nodded my head and thought, okay, I can do that. It wasn't until many years later that I actually realized that was meditation, because I was listening to silence. And when you hear the silence, what happens is your mind gets less cluttered. And the analogy I like to use, it's a snow globe. If I take a snow globe and I shake the snow globe, I have a snow globe right in front of me here. I keep one on my piano. That it's turbid. Like you can't see anything through the snow globe. But if you put the snow globe down and you let the turbidity settle, well, over a period of time, then you have what we call is clarity. And that simple discipline of meditation, or just sitting still for a period of time and connecting in with your breath, gives you mental clarity. And I learned that very young. And it wasn't until later on that I started to discover the martial arts and the Tai Chi and the Qigong. And I said, wow, it's all the same. Like everything I've been doing here in music, it's all the same thing. It's just a different vehicle or a different tool, a different form of expression. So whether you're playing a piano, whether you're, doing a meditation, whether you're, swinging a sword or, even a brush and painting, it's all really the same thing.
Is that because it ultimately comes down to being present in the moment? I mean, whether the moment is an inhalation or a movement or a stroke of the key?
Yes. I mean, that's a lot of it. I mean, there's obviously craftsmanship and there's mastery in the craftsmanship, but
Sure.
You have to be completely present, because it's been estimated. There's a lot of different schools of thought on this, but that we have somewhere between, 60,000 and 100,000 thoughts per day, but that, 99% of those thoughts are the exact same thoughts you had yesterday. And so it's like a skipped record analogy. And when you start to create space in between your thoughts or the incessant stream of thinking, well, all types of things happen. I mean, if you Google benefits of meditation, you'll get thousands of pages. It talks about, lower your blood pressure and slow down the aging process and increase the dopamine and serotonin levels, the feel-good chemicals in the brain, drop the stress hormone, the cortisol, levels, and it goes on and on. All of those are true. I mean, they really do happen. But what a lot of it has to do with is creating a little gap in between that inner dialogue or the blah, blah, blah that goes on, for most people nonstop in their head.
So I think the next question that probably everyone in our audience is asking is, what is meditation? It has probably given you the lower blood pressure and the sense of calm and lower stress, but I would sense because you've devoted your life to teaching this to others, it's had some profound impact on you and your life. Tell me about that.
Well, it's a really, really good question here. So, to give a couple examples, well, let's even back up. Let's go into there's an Eastern concept. It's called Jing, Qi, and Shun. And it's really actually very simple. It means body or matter, energy, and spirit. And the analogy I like to use is if we have H2O, we usually think of H2O as water, but actually H2O can also show up as ice or like solid matter. It shows up as liquid, and it also can show up as vapor. And so the matter is, we call body or form, like what you can see. The Qi, QI, is not just the energy, but it's also the breath. It's also the emotion. Very important. When you're dealing with wellness, it's not just your physical health, but it's really your emotional health. And that's to be found in the Qi, in the breath. And then what we call Shun is the spirit. And so we have a saying, it's called align the three. So align the body, the Qi, the emotion, the energy, the breath, and the spirit. And that's really done through, there's a bunch of different ways. See, there's many paths up the mountain, to do this and to accomplish this. And what we do in our program is we have what we call sit, stand, move. And the sitting practice is the meditation. The standing practices are to stimulate the Qi and the energy. And then the moving practices, such as the Tai Chi or the Qigong or even the martial arts, is to, we call it stir the Jing, which really means, you move the body, you make it flexible, you make it very strong, and you make it very vibrant. And what happens is, when your vehicle is strong, there's a saying, don't house a strong mind in a weak body. When the vehicle is strong, when your emotions are level, are balanced. And when I say emotions are balanced, it doesn't mean that you don't have, emotional reactions. It doesn't mean you never get upset or you never experience, grief, worry, or any of these other emotions. But you learn how to regulate them. And so you don't stay there, and if we go into Eastern medicine, what we call it the 5 elements. And there are different emotions associated with different organs. And so it's like anger is held in the liver, and grief is held in the lungs, and worry is held in the stomach and spleen, and shock is held in the heart, and fear is held in the kidneys.
Wow.
And so we have these emotions that like run through you. And we teach this, and we teach all of our members. It's when you have what's called negative emotions, the challenge is how quickly can you run it through you? Like you get there, but you don't stay there, and a lot of that is just done through the, through the meditation and through the other practices.
That's really interesting. There are 2 things that stood out about what you said. The first one is you touched on a metaphor in a slightly different way, but a metaphor that I've long held from a pretty intense experience, psychedelic experience I had. And at the time, I think I've talked about this on the show before, but at the time I asked a friend, I was like, have you ever experienced what I'm experiencing right now in terms of clarity, oneness, presence? And she goes, not from what you're experiencing it from, but there are many ways to roll down that mountain. And you had said, there are many ways to get up this mountain. And I love that metaphor, rolling up the mountain or climbing up the mountain. And indeed, there are many ways to make that movement. And the second thing that I really loved was just the clarification around that you still experience these emotions, but it's how quickly can you dissipate that emotion. And I think a lot of times people mistake mindfulness for not letting stuff in, right? Like keeping the mind quiet, people talk about. And the first thing I asked, I did a little bit of meditation training in Rishikesh in India. And one of the first things I asked them was, how do I stop all these thoughts from coming into my mind? And this guru who'd been meditating for 25 years said to me, "Oh no, that is the human condition. It's how quickly can you release those thoughts that signifies the master." So I really appreciate you driving that point home for people.
That's really well said, because you can kind of say that a few different ways. And there's so many different analogies, because there's one discipline that you can do in meditation where we call it, watching your thoughts, because it's what I said before, when we have like the skipped record. I don't know, some of your listeners might need to Google skipped record, what that means. And,
right.
And it's like the repeating thoughts that go on and on. If you can think of it, is that we have the thoughts and then we have the observer. So it's the thoughts and what observes the thoughts. And really that principle is really to be found in the word human being, because there's a human part of us, and the human part of us changes like moment by moment, day by day. Everyone is a different human than you were when you were 8 years old. But the being part really stays the same, like the being in which is the observer. And so the discipline of watching your thoughts, you activate what we call the observer. And so when you start watching it, it's, blah, 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 and you start watching it. And then there's so many little Zen disciplines and Zen tricks. A very simple one that I like is you say to yourself, I wonder what thought I'm going to have next.
I love that one. Yeah. Yep.
And then you watch your thoughts, and it's like a cat staring at a mouse hole, and you just watch. And what happens is you'll have this moment of, the thinking goes blah, 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 and then blah, blah, blah. And then you come back into it. But that little tiny space or that little tiny gap is so powerful. And that's really where like a lot of the benefits start to kick in, is during the gap. Sometimes it's referred to as emptiness or space or the no thing. It's sometimes referred to. And when and that's just building a muscle. And it's kind of like building the muscle of the off switch in your head. And because most of the thoughts that we have, we don't need. It's like you've already had them. You don't, it's like watching a television show over and over again. So it's like, oh, okay, you don't need to watch this show again. You're good. You got it. You have every line memorized.
Right.
And that's where it really activates the power of creativity, the power of clarity. It makes you a little bit happier, like a little bit of more inner peace. I mean, it doesn't, there's a saying, it's like, it doesn't solve your problems, but it can make you a tiny bit happier. And that little bit happier can be a tipping point.
Wow. Yeah. This is something I really need to pay heed to myself, because I have recently noticed, my fiance has pointed out to me just how much time I spend in these loops of anxiety of, better than anyone as a business owner, you're constantly asking yourself, well, what are sales looking like right now? And are all my employees happy and healthy? And what about that employee who had, that issue, medical issue, what's going on? I better check that. And you're just constantly in these anxiety loops. And it's kind of your job to be on top of things and know what's going on in your own business. But at the same time, you're right. It is not productive to ask yourself 30 times a day, well, what's going on with that new initiative that people are working on within the business? So it's something I really need to pay attention to. What would you say is a really good starting point for, I've done some meditation, probably more than our average listener, but how can people start to work towards a little bit more of this space in between their thoughts?
Well, and that's a really good question. And, we've been teaching it for 25 years. Wow. And what I started doing just under 5 years ago to help this and to really answer that question, I started composing meditation music. And that what the songs are 5-minute songs. They're all 1 beat per second, and that helps regulate the heart. And then what there is there's a little bell that goes off every 4 seconds. And you put on one song, you just make your body still, inhale and exhale to the bell. And if you can just do that discipline for 5 minutes, takes about a week or so, but 5 minutes a day, one song. If there's nothing to think about, put in one song, be still, breathe. And even if you screw up the breathing, it doesn't matter. just be still for one song. After about a week, you start to see some of the turbidity settle. Now, kind of a funny thing about how this came about. I mean, I grew up in music. I came from a musical family. I studied as a child. I went to Berklee Music College. And after college, I was, as I said, I was like really involved in in this training. And I made a little career decision. It was like, do I want to, as a profession, go music or basically go Zen and, open up studios? I was in my early 20s, and I decided to open up studios. And so we did that and did it for 20 years. We still do it. I mean, we have a big organization here. And so I, put the composing and the music and all my training kind of on the back burner. I still did it for fun, but I didn't do it professionally. And so really, it was actually at the urging of my business partner. He kept saying, why don't you score what we do, score the physical movement and score the music. You have this ability and you haven't done it. I mean, he told me for years, I just didn't want to do it because it's a lot of work. It's like, nah, I don't want to do it. But there was no other music that worked for what we did. I went and I looked, and I was hoping somebody else would do it because I didn't want to do the work, and I couldn't find anything. And so we started doing it. I started putting together albums. And it's really evolved. I mean, I have 5 that at this time that are out right now. In the next 3 months, I have 2 more coming out. In the next 6 months, I'm actually going to have 5 more albums coming out in the next 6 months. And so I set a little 5 years, just under 5 years ago, actually like 4.5 or so. I set a challenge for myself, and I said, hey, why didn't I do 10 albums in 10 years? Giving myself space because life events happen. And, I'm going to do that in 5. I'll have my 10 albums out in 5 years. And they're all, well, thank you. And they're all tools for meditation. Now, you might have heard of Microsoft did a study a few years ago. It made the news, and it said the human attention span had gone from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. Right. Over the last decade, and that, the attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds. And so, the humans have accomplished the goal, or accomplished the feat, I should say, of having a lower attention span than a goldfish. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that I would really even need to write 5-minute pieces for meditation, because it used to be, you meditate for 30 minutes and that was more the norm. But we're in a time period where the competition for time is so intense. I mean, you used to, have a 1-hour DVD that you could, sit down and watch for an hour. Nowadays, if a video is 5 minutes on Facebook, well, that's too long to watch, or a 5-minute video is too long. Totally. So the attention span has really, really shrunken. And so what we have found is to get somebody started in meditation, if we say, hey, it's 5 minutes, which is 300 seconds. Sit down, shut up and breathe. No excuse. Don't tell me you don't have 5 minutes. That's nonsense. Well, more and more people can say, hey, I can do that. If I say, hey, you better meditate, sit and be still for 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes of the evening for an hour a day. Well, most people aren't going to do that because they don't believe they can. So we shrunk it into this little tiny, bite size, 5 minutes, take a break. And the magical thing is that it works. And it really does work. And the way I write the music, I really started a style of music called 5-element meditation music. And it's based on what I said before, like 5-element teachings. And when we say 5 elements, like we're not talking periodic chart or periodic table element. It goes wood, fire, earth, metal, water. But a lot of times it gets confusing because you think, okay, what does wood mean? What does fire mean? They're all metaphor. So it's not literal wood, literal fire, right, etc. It's like you look out in nature and there's a repeating pattern of 5. They figured this out thousands of years ago. They just, through observation, contemplation, and meditation, the old sages figured this out. And so there's this repeating pattern of 5 things. I mean, hey, we have 5 fingers. We have the 5 senses. We have, and then 5, actually it's 10. It's a decimal system. With both our hands, it goes to 10. When we call it 5 seasons, wood is springtime and fire is early summer, earth is late summer, metal is the fall. Things literally fall, they get cut. And water would be the winter. But there's also the 5 emotions, which I explained earlier, that connects in with an element. And so everything, it's repeating in 5. There's 5 phases of your life. The springtime is the wood element is ages 0 to 8. When everything is new, everything is fresh. Right. Then you go into what we call the fire phase, which is age 8 to 33, early summer. And that's the phase of your cultivation and development. That's the look at me, what I'm going to be phase. Right. And then we go from 33 to 58, which is earth, which is more level. And that levels out. And that's the, hey, you better do the work and, who you are. That's really the work, the main part of your work life at 58. And 58 then begins the fall or the autumn. We call that the metal element. And literally things start to fall. Your skin starts to fall. People start to fall around you at 58. Things fall. It's a very different energy. That goes to 83. And then we say 83 to 108 is the winter or the water element. And that's preparation for death and all of eternity time. And ultimately at that point is when you just, you give everything away. You give give your stuff away, give your knowledge away. And that's you kind of prepare for that. And so there's a 5 elements in that. When you get into Eastern medicine, all the medicine is based on the 5 elements. And even in music, there's the 5 elements. In pop music, if you really look at the pop music, it's really all I want you, I need you, I miss you, let's party, and social commentary. Right. It's really what it's all about. And and there's an elemental component. I want you as earth, I need you as wood, I miss you as metal. Social commentary is water, it's reflective, and let's party is fire. So I could go on and on. We can take anything, any phenomenon, and we divide it into 5, and there's a cycle. And so, okay, so back to the music. So what I do in the music is I have all my albums they really have 6 songs. There's a 6th element and a 6th chi, and like a 6th sense. Maybe if we have time for that, I can explain that. But with the 5 elements, so the wood element has a wood energy. It's like shooting upward. It's naive. It's green, the color in the music. And then the fire still goes upward, and it's like, flames dancing, you can think of it, or kind of flickering flames. And the earth element in the music is very sweet. It's very centered because earth always comes back to the center. The metal is falling, almost chopping, a little bit of grief sometimes in the metal element, and then the water is flowing and like flowing downward. And so I've composed all these albums that if you just put the album on in the background, even if you're not meditating, 2 things happen. The first is your heart rate starts to drop because all the music is 1 beat per second. And so if you put on like a Fitbit or an iWatch, something like that, you put it on for 30 minutes, you'll see your heart rate starts to go down. The second thing that happens is it's a 5 element teaching that's in the music. Now, in a musical language is not an intellectual language. Like if you really want to learn 5 elements, okay, I can bust out a chart and I can kind of explain all of this in further detail. But subconsciously, it's all there. And then you kind of, that's kind of wood type energy. Oh yeah, fire type energy, etc. You start to get it. I'll tell you, Jonathan, I've had a lot of fun composing the music. Some of it's solo. One of the albums coming out is for solo piano, which doesn't have a bell to breathe, but all the other ones do. The other one, I have, choir, I have singers. My little sister, Robin, she's a Broadway singer. She does the Hugh Jackman tour, and she's toured the world with him and does the Broadway show. And so I get her to sing on my albums. Actually, in 2 days, I drive out to LA to record her to finish one album and to, start another one. I get her for a couple of days in the studio. And, I have choirs going on and orchestra. It's so much fun, putting all of this music together. And, it's really what our members do. You can get the music. You don't have to be a member to get the music, but it kind of like becomes their soundtrack. It becomes their cultivation and their personal development soundtrack.
Very cool. From what I'm hearing, it sounds a lot like the music is more about just giving people an easy path that first off makes it more pleasant than listening to someone go breathe in, breathe out. But also it's kind of like a helper, a crutch for those of us who are so far down the monkey mind path that we need something just to kind of pace us out and bring us into that presence.
That is very well said, because what we'll do in trainings when we have our live trainings, I'll have everyone sit and do a 5-minute meditation in silence. And then I'll have them do a 5-minute meditation with music. And everybody says with the music, it goes by so much faster and it's so much easier to do.
Right. I've got to try this. You sent me some of it and I've been saving it till after the interview so that I start the interview. I try to never read people's books or consume their work because then I can ask beginners questions. Can we hear some music?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sitting at the piano right now. I'll tell you, you said something interesting. You said about the monkey mind. And the monkey mind is the blah, blah, blah. And we have a saying in meditation, and it's called chain the monkey to the tree. And, but then you also have to know that the monkey is a master locksmith. And so no matter what you do, at some point that monkey's going to escape, and the monkey tricks you to think it didn't escape. So it's like you'll have a moment in meditation. It's like you'll have this moment of no thought in this beautiful moment. Then you'll make the realization that you weren't thinking. And the moment of that realization, oh, wow, I was doing it. I'm so cool. Oh, I can meditate. Wow, I'm really doing it. Well, the monkey tricked you. You just lost it. But the good news is that's okay. I mean, at some point, you're going to come out of it. So when you come out of it, you come out of it. And actually, you should be really happy, especially in the beginning, that you had those moments. I mean, when you start to have those moments, it's really, really profound. And so, yes, I'm at my piano right now. And then what I can do is, maybe do a minute or so. Will that be okay?
Love to. Whatever. I mean, we got time.
Okay. Maybe I'll do 2 minutes. I'll really stretch. I won't do the whole song. All we want to do is inhale and exhale naturally. So listening as the listener, if you can, just close your eyes, be still. I'll give you another little technique, another little trick is with your mouth closed, roll your tongue into the back of your mouth. And that helps to create moisture in the mouth, which is a very good thing. And just relax your shoulders and chill out and breathe and enjoy some of the music. So what I'll play something from the new album coming out. This is the Water Element. And what to listen to in the Water Element, the color is blue. And you'll hear like the waves going down the piano. So here we go. Here is the Water Element.
Wow. Beautiful. Time just flew by so quickly. And so as we were listening to that, we're supposed to be breathing it at specific times and exhaling at specific times?
Ideally, what I like to tell everybody is if that gets too complicated, then don't worry about it. Just relax, because we don't want to get like, if you give somebody too much to do, especially in the beginning in meditation, then it just creates more mental static and more mind static. But it would be, it'd be like we do 4 seconds. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale.
Okay, now I'm getting it. Incredible. And I want to also ask you, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, Jason, about music and learning, because as you said, you come from a musical family. I've only recently, I played the guitar a little bit in my adolescence, but I've only recently really taken to music theory and understanding how music works. And so I'm interested to hear your take on how music has influenced your life and how being musical has influenced the way that you perceive the world and the way that you learn.
Yeah, okay, really good. Well, there's studies, and this can all be, of course, Googled, is the one thing that everybody does that fires up more parts of the brain than anything else is, believe it or not, listening to music. When I actually first heard that, I was surprised that just because it starts to fire up different parts of the brain, and everybody listens to music in one way or another. We're born with it. And if you even really look at the senses, the ears are unique because the ears can't be closed. Like the eyes can be closed, the mouth can be closed.
Oh, that's interesting.
The nose can be, closed with your hands. The nose is the other one. Smell and sound are the senses that it's like, no, you can't, you don't close those. And the ears actually develop in the womb before the eyes do. That's one of the earliest senses, so you start to hear your mother's heartbeat. And that's why actually singing to a baby in the womb or even playing music to a baby in the womb. I remember my son, he's now 18, when my wife was pregnant, I used to play Bach for him all the time. I used to play, it was this one song of the Goldberg variation. I used to play it over and over. And she used to just sit there and meditate, and I was playing for this little baby. And so it also, it really helps organize the brain with music. But also, music is sound. And if we say, what is sound? Well, sound is just a vibration. But really everything is a vibration. So it's like we have the sound range, there's a range of sound or a range of, let's call it vibration, that our ears pick up. Right. Now, if you keep taking the vibration and you double it, well, at some point it becomes light, it's no longer sound. Right. And so everything is just, is vibration. And so the other unique thing about music, it's uniquely human. And aside from the exception of a couple different birds, there's a few birds that can actually process rhythm and actually dance to rhythm. Processing music and what music does is human. It's like animals don't have the same rhythm and they can't dance. Now you say, well, wait a minute, I can go on YouTube and, dancing dogs, whatever. I can see all types of funny ones. Well, actually, when researchers did that, they found that the animals were just imitating the human and they weren't really connecting to the music. And again, they found this one, they found a bird, and I forget the species of bird that was actually able to, when they turned up the tempo and they turned down the tempo and there was no people in the room, it was able to dance and actually get the rhythm. The funny thing is they found that the bird was able to connect into the rhythm 25% of the time correctly. You think, well, wait a minute, 20% of the time, that's not very high. Well, that's actually more than most people can connect into rhythm. So the researcher said, no, we're good. 25% of the time is, that works.
Wow. So interesting. And I love what you said about how music shapes the brain, because I think it does. It's the way that I would say it is music is very much like learning another language, right? Except it has many other components, especially if you're playing it. It has a tactile kinesthetic component, but it's kind of like learning another language on steroids, right? Every time you learn a new language, you discover a new facet of yourself, and research has shown you actually develop a new facet of your personality and a new personality in that language. So speaking Hebrew has taught me how to be a more direct and kind of aggressive person, whereas speaking Spanish has taught me to have more of a kind of clever turn of phrase, and speaking Russian has taught me how to have this dark humor in each language, I acquire new skills. And I think music is doubly so.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I mean, because it is a language, it's a musical language. It's just it's a different language, and it fires up a different part of your brain, and it also forces you to listen. You know, the saying, we have two ears and one mouth.
For a reason.
let's think, what's more important to do, and it really forces you to listen, and it brings up emotion. Because everyone has some type of music that gives you chills. Like at some point in your life, you've been listening to something, whatever it is, and you just got this feeling, like whatever the style of music is. And so even when the researchers try to figure that out, what is it that gives chills? It's really hard to figure that out because everyone's a little bit different. Like, you get 100 people in a room and the same music or musical phrase or musical song is not going to give everybody chills. Like a couple people will get it from this and a couple people will get it from something else. But it does stir emotion, and it brings up the motion because it's the vibration. And that's when we say, it's like the tuning fork analogy. If I have a tuning fork, it's tuned to, whatever, A440, and I tune it, and it'll activate the other tuning fork. I mean, even now, it's like I'm on my piano right now. I can push the what's called the damper pedal. So this, it's a string. I could sing a note. And just by singing the note without touching the string, I can activate the string. And that kind of ties into the law of attraction.
Interesting.
Well, here, if I push the pedal.
Whoa.
I don't know if you can hear it there, but the string activated.
You can totally hear it. That's crazy. I play on an organ, like an electric. I don't have room for a grand in my house. That is so cool. I did not know that. Fascinating. And you're right. That does touch into the law of attraction and this idea of like vibrational frequencies. And it's fascinating. Just fascinating. So, Jason, I want to be respectful of your time, but I don't want to let you go until I ask you for some homework to give our audience. How can our audience act on the things that they're learning today and start reaping some of the benefits of mindfulness?
Yeah, well, you know what? Really, the first step of any journey is the commitment to it. And it's the commitment to the path. And when you start on a path, there's a Taoist saying, and it says, the obstacles to the path create the path. So we say, well, what does that mean? Well, when you start upon any discipline, any journey, any commitment, you have to start it knowing that there's obstacles and knowing that, hey, at some point you're going to fall off the wagon. At some point you're going to screw it up. And so when you go into that knowing that, so that not if it happens, but when it happens, it's not a big deal, because we say, hey, you say, I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes, every day for the next 7 days. Okay, I'm going to do that. Oh, and by the way, you're better off meditating 5 minutes a day for 7 days than, meditating once on Sunday for 35 minutes.
So true.
It's like, you don't wait till Sunday to take 7 showers.
Right.
Something you got to do every day. And really, even as you get into it, what you'll find is you start doing it throughout the day. Like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes in the afternoon. It's like, okay, wow, I'm going to just take a little 5-minute meditation break. And when you really start to get into it, it starts to become, one of the favorite parts of your day, because you just get to settle and you just get to, be creative. Because ultimately, all the creativity comes through space. Even when I compose, I have a bunch of different composing techniques, but one of the things I do with my compositions and for creativity, I compose when I'm doing something else. And so what I'll do is I'll sit down at the piano and I'll start something, and then I'll actually literally I'll stand up and I'll picture myself like continuing to compose, and I'll go do something else. And my subconscious mind continues to do that. I moved my residence just under a year ago, and I knew I wouldn't have time for like 2 months. I was just moving, and I had all this stuff I had to do. So I knew I couldn't spend the time I normally spend doing it. So I was like, okay, that's okay. And I said, okay, I just told myself, I said, okay, right. Like I pictured it. I said, compose, with a command. It was not a request. It was a command, right. And I could just see myself doing it. And I pictured it, and that was in my meditation. Okay, so once I moved, then, an album came out in an afternoon. Now, it took time to like fine tune it, but like the sketch of an album, I should say. I didn't complete it in the afternoon, but an entire album, it came out. Now we say, did I write it in the afternoon? No, not at all. I wrote it, over those couple months, but it was my subconscious mind doing it. And it becomes much easier to do when you're not so cluttered, Like when you have
Wow.
space in your mind, it's almost like you can duplicate yourself. There's this, I wish there was two of me. Well, first, be careful what you wish for. But you
Right.
can't really do two of you on a matter level, like what I said earlier about Jing. But there can be many of you on a Qi level. Like you can have a lot of you doing a lot of different things, and it's a discipline, like all things. But you can do that for super creativity. So, back to your question here. The first thing is, hey, make a commitment to be better and make a commitment to fine tune it, which is really the whole premise of your show. Of what you do is be upgrading your skills. And, it's funny. It's like, what? I upgrade my skills by not doing anything? Well, wait a minute. I thought I was supposed to be active. It's like it's the complete opposite. There's the lumberjack analogy of, don't be too busy cutting down trees to take time to sharpen your blade.
Totally.
Think, oh, no, I can't sharpen my blade. I can't sharpen it. Well, meditation and these disciplines are really about sharpening your blade. So the first thing is you just make a commitment to it. Now, can I give a website? Can I tell them where they can get?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
So the website is Zen Wellness, ZenWellness.com. And there's a music tab on there. It's /music. And what I do with most of our music, I actually give it away for free. And I give it away on Amazon. They don't let us do it anymore. But when they did, I got a lot of it up on Amazon, and they would let us give it away for free. And the reason I did that is so that you have no excuse. Oh, well, I can't meditate because I don't have the dollar for the song. Well, guess what?
Right.
There is no obstacle. I took the dollar obstacle or the $6 for the album or whatever it cost. I took that out of the equation. So you have absolutely no excuse not to do it.
I love that.
You can go to the Zen Wellness, there's, /music. There's a page there. There's downloads. There's also a little teaching that of me at the piano doing it. We certainly have other courses as well, other meditation courses and Qigong and Tai Chi courses, etc. But you download the music and just make a commitment to it, that you're just going to sit and be still for 5 minutes. Do it every day. You're going to miss a day because you're going to forget. You're going to get busy. You're going to get turbid, etc. And that's okay. And it's like what I said emotionally earlier. Something's going to happen that is going to trigger anger. Something's going to happen that's going to trigger grief. I mean, these emotions, if you live long enough, you're going to have grief. And it's not about, not having the emotion. It's more about how quickly can you recover. So when you miss a day of meditation, okay, whatever, move on. Don't dwell on yesterday. Just sit down, shut up and do it. And how quickly sometimes it's like, okay, just, stop right now. Do you have 5 minutes? Sometimes during the day you do, sometimes you don't. But it's that attitude and that really it's about mastery. And mastery begins with a mindset and a commitment to mastery.
This is so important what you're saying, Jason, because we have so many people every week, downloading all these episodes literally and figuratively into their minds. And then I feel like beating themselves up because they're not doing everything that is advocated by every guest. And I used to be like that. And then I realized that if you can get 10 or 20%, first off, as you said, it's about setting your intentions. And the first step is making the commitment. But in order to so I'm going through a lot of management coaching right now with Annie Hyman Pratt, whom you also know. And the first step to making an accountable commitment to yourself or others is creating that alignment on the desired outcome, right? Like, what are the things that we are going to focus on? What is that going to look like? And let's do some strategic thinking before we just randomly commit, because people can't commit until they have the psychological safety, but until also the desired outcome is clear and there's alignment there. And so most of what we teach is how to apply things that you learn one place to other places. And I'm realizing that the same is true of all the stuff that we share on the episode. It's picking the 10 to 20% of things that you are able to show up and be accountable for in your own life, and then committing to those things and doing them.
That's really well said. A couple of weeks ago, I did a podcast with John Bowen, from Genius Network, and he coaches financial advisors. He's a really, really big organization, a brilliant man. And one of the things that he has done is he, studies billionaires. Okay, what are the habits of billionaires? And one of the things that the billionaires all did was meditate. And you think, well, wait a minute, they're billionaires. They don't have time to meditate. They have so many things that they have to manage and so many things going on. Well, it's like, no, it's back to the sharpening the blade. If you're going to manage that much, you better meditate. You better be like so sharp mentally, because sometimes also in meditation, there's the visualization of the monk sitting atop of the mountain, which, okay, if that visualization works for you, fine, but don't limit that meditation to that. No, you can be very active, very engaged, very involved in the world. I had an old Taoist master many years ago say to me, this is man, the top knot, the flowing robes and everything. He said, don't be so quick to be at one with the universe. He said, you have death and all of eternity to be at one with the universe. Enjoy your separation now.
That is fascinating. I really love that. Jason, we could talk for hours here, and we will in September when I come and visit you. But I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're just starting out your day. Remind us that website where we can send people so that they can learn more and start engaging with you and all that you have to share.
ZenWellness.com, ZenWellness.com.
Awesome. And I want to ask you the last question, which is, we talked about so much here on this episode. What is that 10 to 20% that you hope people really act on and remember going through from this episode? What's the kernel of the most important thing here?
Take one song for 5 minutes, sit down, shut up and breathe.
I love it. Simple and effective. Jason Campbell, my friend, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure when we chat. Really looking forward to hanging out.
Hey, likewise. Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan.
All right, brother. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
All right, super friends, that is all we have for you today, but I hope you guys really enjoyed the show, and I hope you learned a ton of actionable information, tips, advice that will help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or drop us a quick little note on the Twitter machine at GoSuperhuman. Also, if you have any ideas for anyone out there who you would love to see on the show, we always love to hear your recommendations. You can submit on our website, or you can just drop us an email and let us know. That's all for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.